Hi everyone, it's Carissa over at Sprinkled with Glitter, and I am here with a card project for you today. Today I'm using the Poet Society card kit from Studio Calico. It's Studio Calico's September card kit, and I'm kind of flipping through the pattern papers here because I'm deciding which pattern papers I'd like to use. And I'm going to be using that ribbon that you saw me with at the first of the video, a few of the pattern papers, also those wood veneer pieces. And I have that silver glitter tape over there as inspiration because I'm going to be making my own silver glitter piece. So first I'm just starting out by kind of flipping through the pad and finding which patterns I want to use and which kind of work well together. So I pulled out a yellow, a black, and then this gray. And I'm also going to be using this awesome stamp set that comes in the kit. I love the stamp set. That big O Hooray greeting is just fabulous. And you can see lots of cards, by the way, over on my blog featuring this stamp set and this card kit as well. So just check that out. But a few weeks ago, I asked what all of you would like to see more of. And one thing that you all mentioned, or some of you mentioned, was my card process. So in this case, I actually created a sketch for this card, and I wanted to kind of share my sketching process with you. So I've kind of zoomed in a little bit here, and I'm using a piece of paper from my planner, which is also where I keep my sketches, and I'm just kind of drawing in that big greeting because it's the largest part of my card. I want to plan where that's going to go first. So I just kind of wrote the hooray in there, just like similar to what it looks like on the actual stamp set, and then I'm going to just start sketching in some little banners here. Now these represent the pattern papers and the glitter piece of paper that I'm going to be using, also the ribbon, and then you'll see me draw one straight across that will represent the kind of wood veneer piece that I'm using as well. Now when I sketch, I think of how I want to use the items and what looks good. But sometimes when I start putting things together, it doesn't always come out exactly like the sketches, and that's okay. It's just a rough guide for me. It's something to go by, it's something to plan, but it isn't what totally dictates what I'm going to do. So if I'm working on a card and it's not working out the way my sketch worked out because maybe sizing or scale is a little different, it's okay. I allow myself to stray from that and kind of, work with that. Now I drew these in here, and I had originally planned, and you're seeing me draw it in there, a little stitched line across the top of all of those banners. And you'll see later on that I actually end up ditching that, and that's because I didn't want to have to sew through that wood veneer piece. But at the time it seemed like a good idea, so maybe if you're just using paper, that's something that you might want to do. And then I'm just drawing in the lines where the sentiment kind of is here. And you're going to see me plan out, how I'm trimming out that sentiment, and you'll see that as well. So now that I've kind of finished my rough sketch here, I've kind of made some notes off to the side what I want: vellum, silver, silver glitter, and that sort of thing. I kind of make notes with my sketches, especially if I'm not making them right away. And then I can go into the actual card creation process. So now I'm just taking these pattern papers and I'm trimming them down into various widths here. Now I just kind of eyeball it, and I look at the papers and I go, what do I want more of? And I wanted this black to be really prevalent on this card because I want it to be kind of masculine. So I cut that strip a little bit wider, and I just kind of made them all different sizes. Now one of the banners is going to be this actual velvet ribbon that's in the kit. And so I just trimmed off a piece of that, and I'm trimming the end of that into a banner end. And as I go through, I'm going to kind of just trim these into different angles and fishtail ends and that sort of thing, and kind of arrange them and plan them how I want to be. So you'll see me bring in that wood veneer piece there because that's going to be one of my banners. Now, I thought I could trim that into a fishtail end. It didn't end up working out. As soon as I put my scissors to it, I was like, that's not going to work. So once again, just abandoned that and went on with it and used it in the way that it would work, which was at a whole piece. So now I have those all kind of trimmed down and ready to go. And now I'm going to create my glitter piece. Now I'm using some of this Be Creative tape. This is the 2-inch wide. And I'm just putting it on a piece of plain white cardstock and just pressing it down really well. You can see because I ripped it off that I had a little overhanging the edge, and I wanted to trim that down before I started working with the glitter. So I just trimmed that off. And then I burnished that Be Creative tape onto the cardstock to make sure that it's stuck on there really well. Now that I have that kind of all burnished on there, I'm going to take it to my trimmer and just trim it down to the width that I think I'm going to use, because I didn't want to cover this entire 2-inch strip in glitter. It just, I won't, I mean, I will use it, but I didn't want to have to store a glittered piece of paper. So I just trimmed off what I thought I would use. I'm going to trim it into a banner end or a fishtail end before I put the glitter on it, just to make it a little bit cleaner and a little bit easier. And then once I have that all done, I'm going to bring in a scrap piece of paper, and I'm going to expose the adhesive of that by removing the backer. And I'm, for some reason, really obsessed with making sure that's burnished on there today, so that was like the third time. So once I get that adhesive exposed, I'm going to pour on some of this Martha Stewart. This is ultra fine glitter in white gold. So it's not silver, it's white gold, although it looks very silver to me. It does have a little less, I don't know, it's a little different than the silver because I have that as well. So once I get that poured on there, I'm going to use my bone folder again to burnish that glitter. I kind of folded the paper over to protect my fingers, and then I burnished it with my bone folder. You would probably get a better burnishing if you did this directly over the glitter, but I was trying to get as little glitter on my hands as possible. So now that piece is ready, and I can go ahead and mount my stamp. I'm using the grid marks on both my block and my craft surface to make sure that that's on my block straight. And then I have a piece of vellum here that I'm prepping the surface of with some EK Success powder tool to keep the extra embossing powder from sticking to places that I don't want it. And then I can ink up my stamp with some Versamark ink. Now, you'll notice here that my vellum is a lot larger than the A2 size card. And I did that on purpose because I need to be able to have some ends on this that I can wrap around the card in order to attach it. So now you'll see me here, and I'm just stamping that greeting down onto the vellum. And once I get that stamped and pressed down really well, it's a solid stamp, so you want to make sure you get a good press on that. Then I can cover it with some white embossing powder, and then I'll heat set that. And using my heat tool on vellum, I want to just make sure that I go ahead and let that heat up really good before I actually take it to the vellum, and then just move really quickly across the vellum in order to prevent warping. So you'll see me here heat embossing that. And then when I got that all done, it was beautiful and fabulous, but I realized that I stamped it over to the edge of that piece of vellum, and I really needed it in the center of the vellum. So you'll see it here, it's all done, and then I was like, whoops. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and then I'm going to redo that whole process, but this time I'm going to stamp it in the center of that big long area of vellum, so that when I cut it down and I wrap it around the card, I can get it centered where I need it. So once again, there it is, all finished and where I need it this time. And then I can bring in my trimmer and go ahead and trim down the sentiment. Now I started out by just cutting it off the big piece because it made it easier to work with. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim right along the bottom of that Hooray. I'll take my trimmer, and I'm sorry I'm a little off screen here, but I'm just cutting all the way up to where that Y is, and then I'm picking up my blade, moving it to the other side of the Y, so I'm not cutting through the Y, just moving it to the other side of the Y, and then pushing it down again, and then finishing that cut off. Now I'm going to do the same thing along the top of this sentiment, only instead of not cutting through the Y, obviously, I'm not going to cut through the H. So I'm just cutting all the way up to where that H begins, so cutting straight across and all the way up to where that H begins. And then I will pick up the blade where the H begins and then set it down on the other side of the H so that I'm not cutting through that H. And then when I get that all trimmed out, it's going to look really weird. It's going to have these kind of ends kind of hanging all over, but I'm going to go in with a pair of scissors and just trim around those letters. Now, I can honestly say that when I was planning this card, my original plan didn't include maybe cutting it down like this. When I had thought about it in my head, I thought I wanted to do like a fishtail banner, but this sentiment, in order to do that, was so wide because of where the Y hung down and where the H came up that it just didn't work out. So this ended up being a really great way to get that entire big, large, bold sentiment in there on kind of a banner strip, but not take up all of that space that it would take in order to cut that straight across. So I hope that makes sense. This is what it looks like when it's all trimmed and it's ready to go. So now I'm just planning out. I have my sketch there, you can see where I want everything. Now, because I'm pointing out here that I actually had to move this sentiment up a little bit more than I thought it would be, because the wood piece does not come down as far as I thought it would onto the card. So now that I have all that order planned out, I kind of mixed my colors in there. I didn't want the gray piece next to the silver glitter piece, and I didn't want the blue next to the yellow. So I tried to distribute my colors, and now I can go ahead and just start adhering all of these pieces down. And I just used some regular tape runner adhesive to do that. And then to adhere this wood veneer piece, I'm just using the multi-medium by Ranger and Claudine Helmuth to adhere that down. Now you'll see it here fall off in just a minute, but don't worry. This stuff actually sticks really good. I just didn't give it enough time. In order to place the ribbon onto the front of the card, I'm using some Be Creative tape, which is the same stuff that I use for the glitter, only this is the 1/8 inch wide instead of the 2-inch wide. So I'm just putting a little piece of that along the back of the ribbon, and then I expose the adhesive and I'm just pushing it down up to the top. And then you'll see me here fold that back so that my ribbon's out of the way, because I want to wrap the ribbon around, and that's where the wood veneer fell off. So I just moved my ribbon out of the way, and then I went ahead and trimmed off all those excess pieces. And once I got that trimmed off, then I took that ribbon and kind of wrapped it around the back. I thought that that would give me a little more finished edge than actually trimming the ribbon off and having some fraying at the top of the card, so that's why I did it that way. And now I can just press that wood veneer piece right back on, and it actually stays really well. So now I'm just lining up my sentiment piece where I want it, and I'm just creating some folds along the sides of it where it needs to fold in order to sit properly across my banners. And I'm going to take some foam adhesive and place it along the back of that Hooray sentiment. Now, because this is a nice wide sentiment, I can get away with putting some foam adhesive behind it and you're never going to see it. And that's another reason why I love to emboss these big bold sentiments on vellum, because you can hide some foam adhesive and still get that dimension that you're looking for, but without having all that foam adhesive show. So I just had to trim down a few of those little squares for some of the skinnier parts, but once I got that all foam adhesived up, I added some tape runner adhesive to the ends. Now those ends are not going to show because they're going to wrap around to the back of the card. So that's why I use tape runner adhesive on that. And then I can just position it where I want it over my banners. Once I get it positioned, I'll kind of just press it all down and then wrap those ends around the back of the card. Now you're seeing me here using my grid mat to kind of line that up to make sure it's straight across the card. And then I'll flip it over and just secure those ends to the back of the card. And that just gives me a nice finished edge as well. Now for some finishing touches, I brought in some enamel dots, and these are Studio Calico enamel dots, and I brought them in the neutrals, yellows, and blues because I wasn't sure exactly which colors I was going to use. And I brought in my sketch here because you can see that I actually originally had planned those in the sketch. And I'm going to place them onto my card using my Tim Holtz craft pick. And I thought I might use the yellow to bring in more yellow, but I ended up using the blue. I just liked the blue a lot better. I think because the wood next to that yellow up in the banners, it just was too much yellow. And I really liked that blue and gray together. And it kept it a little more on the masculine side, which was kind of my goal for this card to begin with. So once I get that all placed exactly where I want it, then I can hold up my finished card project here for you and just show you my card and my sketch together. Once again, there were some changes, but overall I kind of stuck to the plan. You can see it has lots of fun dimension there. So here's a look at the completed card. As always, I've linked all the products used in this project in the description at YouTube as well as over at my blog. And you can see lots more projects using the Poet Society card kit over at my blog. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope you have a fabulous day.